Oh,
In the house.
live.
All right. Trails Collective coming live. This evening, I am catching up with Mari Balow. She wears a whole ton of hats, which I think is pretty awesome. And I'm really excited to dive into several of them. She's coming to us from, is it Portland, Maine proper? Is that where you
Portland,
are?
Maine. Yep,
Portland, Maine.
sure is.
Yeah. And so when I was scratching notes, I wanted to keep shorthanding PDX every time I wrote
Yeah.
Portland, but I was like, oh, wait, that's not going to work at all, actually.
Nope. This is the
Yeah,
OG Portland. OG
it is.
Portland.
It is the OG Portland. That's good. Um, so, so Mari, I'm just going to run down some of your hats here, as I mentioned, just because you wear a good number of them. There's a lot of dovetailing,
Yes.
and I think a lot of. It seems like I guess we're all figuring out progressively who we are, but it seems like you have a good handle on who you are, where your kind of place is, and there's a lot of symmetry here with your hats. So Mari is one of the, and jump in or correct me or after if I mess one of these titles up, but
Sure.
one of the co-organizers of the Runaways Run Club, the more formal hat now with the Grind Run Company, part of or one of the co-organizers or leaders of the Portland Sweat Project, one of the sisters in charge for the Trail Sisters Portland, and a whole lot that comes under those. You grew up in Providence, Rhode Island. You went to high school in Charleston, West Virginia, college at Bard,
That's right.
and then found your way, and we get into that, how you found yourself in Maine. But one of the things, just looking over I guess, the decisions that you've made in life, the culture that you're a part of and that you're creating around you, one of the things that stands out is that you are very much about community. It seems like you are a selfless individual. Hope that doesn't put you too much on the spot to say that, and just very much about the community. I mean, even the events that you run under the Grind Run Company with your partner, and this was something before I knew you, and when I was just looking up various events along the way, and I found my way, maybe Firebird caught my eye or
Yep.
something like that, one of your events, and looked into just your registration component, rather, where you have a suggested donation of $20 to $40 to a nonprofit, and then the remainder of the registration goes to the event company. So I would guess that ratio is much higher in terms of a donation to a nonprofit than even events that donate a good amount of their proceeds to the nonprofit. And I think that, to me, that was just like an indicator to a certain extent of who you are. And I'm just wondering, oh, and also when I also scroll down, so I see, even looking at the races that you've chosen to do between 2018 and
Yep.
2019, Pineland Farm, Seven Sisters, Stone Cat, Tark Ghost Train, some classic events, but ones that are really just strong in the community feel. So obviously you love the community, you love being out there. Another one that caught my eye was the Canyon de Chelly
Yep.
Ultra, which I had gone out and ran that the first year in 2013, and it was I guess what I'd hoped for
Exactly.
the opportunity and the experience and the immersion. And I was able to spend some time on the reservations around that time for a week or so after. But this is all is to say, when I look back over your history resume, you went to school for religion and literature, and how much of that religion and literature and philosophical background play into everything that you're doing right now. All right, sorry, I just talked at you
That's
for a
huge.
while, but I
That's
wanted
good.
to get around to that piece because it seems like you've been very intentional, and that paradigm, that mentality must feed into the things you're doing now.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Um, it's interesting that you use the word intentional because I'm not sure that I even was cognizant of that intention as I made my way along my path. But one of the things that, I knew as I was making my way through sort of those standard steps that an athletic individual takes, right? So I was never really on teams, but when I got into working out more, when I was going to the gym and I was going to classes, and then you start doing I bet I could do this. I could be an instructor. I'd be good at this. This would be great. I'd
Mm-hmm.
really enjoy this. Then it became, I hate the aspects of this that are about, you have to come to my gym, you have to be in my class, I need numbers, and I need people paying memberships, and that part really doesn't work for me. It didn't work for me. It didn't fill the need, right?
Hmm.
And I find that one of the things I do really well is I'm a facilitator, I'm a connector. I'm out in the community all the time. I'm meeting people. It's like my Starbucks, I go to their art openings, my barista's art opening, not this past year. We don't do anything this year, but um, this is what I do. And I kind of made that connection with, the athletic part, the movement part of my life is essential, and it drives me in so many ways and gives me a lot of deep satisfaction. And then the community piece was an obvious adjunct, and it was sort of yeah, okay, but I fell into it sort of accidentally because I had done, a number of road races and kind of thought, meh, whatever.
Hmm.
And then I went to Pineland, signed up on a whim for the Pineland 50K, decided I was going to run it, showed up, and people laugh at me now, and I laugh at me, showed up at this thing, no clue what an ultra meant. I had no extra pairs of shoes, I had no fuel, I had no crew, I had no friends. I was just like, oh, I don't know, I guess I'm going to go run for the day.
Uh-huh.
And it was kind of um, amazing to do that process that way. And just the people I talked to all day while I was running, I think it was incredibly muddy the year I did it, so I was, I'm not fast anyway, but it was slow. It was like 7 hours I was out there. I was just talking to people. I got out of that race and I was like, that was amazing. Like, you
Uh-huh.
don't chat with people at a road race, it's like you
Yeah.
go to a trail race and you're chatting with people and you're meeting people, and it's a totally different experience. And I had a complete, sort of a, this I can do, this I love.
Hmm.
And then I found November Project, sort of anecdotally, just stumbled into it. They were doing a pop-up in Portland. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go to that. And it just completely, again, connected all these synapses that were like, this is free, but it's the kind of thing you might do at a gym, but you don't have to be at a gym. You're outside, which is where I'd always prefer to be anyway. And I don't have to worry about my numbers. It doesn't matter. If people
Uh-huh.
come, they're coming because they want to, and we're all going to enjoy it. And it's got a looseness to it. It's not like okay, we've got an 8 count on this, and then we're going to do a 7 count on that one, and then we're going to switch right over to the push up. It's like, it's bullshit, sorry. So, it's
Hmm.
like 100% met that need, and just the community that gets built when somebody will, I yearn for that, so I show up and I create the space where that can happen. And then when people come, it's great. So
Hmm.
that's really what drives me.
And what's the November project? In your email I had seen that, but I forgot to mention it here. And tell me again what the
Yeah.
November project is.
Yeah. So, you know, it was just a couple guys in Boston who challenged themselves to work out every day for the month of November. And, the weather out here is rough in the
Hmm.
winter. So that was their way of kind of getting themselves through. And they just sort of built around that. Friends started showing up and meeting them. And now I think they're worldwide in 52 cities or something like that. They've got November Project chapters. And here in Portland, we're not officially November Project.
Hmm.
We used to be a pledge group, and now I think we're really just a group of people who kind of pick up on the ethos of what November Project was, which was
Hmm.
free, community-based fitness that was supposed to be fun, and that you know nobody gets left behind, right? So it's like, doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you're the fastest or the slowest, you're gonna get the workout. You're welcome. No barriers, which is super important.
And so the November project that then has become for you the Portland Sweat Project. Is that the
Correct.
manifestation or whatever? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And so that's getting together. That's so on the site it's free fitness every Wednesdays at 6:30. And is
Yeah,
that what's
we're
the
currently
okay?
not in person. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all right. So yeah. So has that maintained? Have you been able to maintain that energy, or what have you done in like a virtual space, or to kind of hold that motivation between individuals?
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's been tough. This sort of, in March, we kind of canned the in person workouts. We got back to them in June. I think. And we were all the way through fall. We stopped again the week before Thanksgiving.
Mhm.
And it's been a little bit rougher this time around on the virtual stuff. I think people are zoomed out,
Sure.
they're done with the virtual stuff. But I've been trying to get challenges up each month. I've gotten some contributions, like members have suggested, hey, let's do this. One of our members came up with our January challenge, for instance, right? This month it's a movement challenge with points associated with it, and we've got a little prize, for the end, for whoever gets the most points, and you get points by moving. It doesn't matter
Mhm.
if you're running, if you're walking, if you're dancing, whatever you're doing. So that's working, but it's definitely a different feel for sure right now.
Yeah. And what's the and okay, so that makes sense now too. Like with the hashtag NP pledge, so that was a November project pledge. That was kind of the roots and how that's morphed. And so you're seeing,
Yep.
okay, so you're able to capture some of your I don't know if evolution's the right word, but how your hats have evolved here. So the NP project became Portland Sweat Project. Runaways Run Club, was that something that tell me about the Runaways Run Club?
Yeah, so that is something that my business partner Ken had started with a friend of his and his girlfriend at the time, now wife. And I came in, I think they started in March. I want to say I came in May, sort of joined
Mhm.
that group. And again, it fit all, rang all the bells, checked all the boxes. It's free, doesn't take itself too seriously. We've got just sort of a great, again, that approach of, it doesn't matter how fast you are, you can show up and there'll be a space for you. There's always
Mhm.
space for people. Again, super important. And there's that component of social. Wednesday is a pub run for us, and so there's that social component where it's very low stress, low impact, easy to get to know people, great place to be. We've
Mhm.
again had to cut out the in-person group runs. Again, we did that right around Thanksgiving. So
Yeah.
we've not been in person since then, which is a drag, but
Your group's pretty, I mean, it's what, you got like 4 runs a week that are going and you meet
yep.
at go from various locations. Is that the
So yeah, so Tuesday morning we always run around the back cove here in Portland. So that's a fixed location. Wednesdays moves around, it's a pub run, so it's different locations. Sundays in the winter is a coffee run, and we had 2 locations we were alternating between. In the summer, it's a trail run, and so those move around. And then Thursday night trail runs in
uh-huh.
in those seasons where we can get out there.
Yes, that's quite a bit. And there
Yep.
was Tracy Herrick
Yep.
commented just Runaways got her started running trails and now she's hooked. And it
Awesome.
seems like that's a consistent theme. I'm sure there's some people that try trails and don't necessarily come back, but it seems like there's some interest there, and you whether start into trails or you come at trails intentionally from road. I don't know. I mean, I guess speed is still fun. There's still some
Yep.
experience there, but it's, I don't know, once you're kind of hooked on trails, it's such a wonderful and opening, I guess, community. So,
It
but
is.
so for your project of four times a week, that's quite a commitment. I mean, I guess that keeps you or your partner Ken, is that
Yep.
Ken, on it, but that's still quite a bit to stick to in shooting for 4 runs a week, at least when COVID's not in.
That's right. It is. It is a lot. And so I've got, 4 runs with Runaways, and then I've got Portland Sweat Project on Wednesdays, and I've got Trail Sisters every Monday. And that's my schedule. But, you know, the thing I get asked a lot, the biggest question I get is, how do you have the time for this
Uh-huh.
stuff? And, my answer is, it's not that other people don't have the time. It's how you're choosing to kind of
You,
prioritize your time, right?
mhm.
So it's like if I come home and sit down on the couch and spend 2 hours in front of a TV, I could have been out, nailing a trail run, right?
Yep.
That's kind of how I look at it. And it's where your passion lies, so I'm pretty passionate about that and enjoy being out there, enjoy spending time with people and then being out on the trails. So that's where I'm going to put my first energy.
Yeah. And you're during the day and you're a Pilates instructor as well. Is that kind of the
I have not been teaching regularly for quite a while, to be
okay?
to be totally fair.
Yeah.
Um, again, it's part of what I struggle with is that studio setting
Hmm.
and that aspect of, you know, kind of monetizing something that
Hmm.
for me I think is incredibly important. The community aspect of fitness is incredibly important, and the more people you can get into it, the better. And so if I can take away the barriers, and part of the barrier for me is charging people to come do that stuff, you know. So I pretty much have left the paid teaching pieces aside for now, and I may get
Hmm.
back to them again someday. But right now, I'm not doing that.
Hmm.
It's all free.
Just,
It's all free.
which is, um, yeah, all right.
And I mean, it works because I have a full time job, so it's not what I rely on for income. So
Yeah, and what's the full time job? What's
yeah.
what's paying the
I
bills?
work. Yeah, I work for a law firm. I'm an accounting manager for a law firm here in town.
Oh, okay. All right. So that for sure um, then increases the, I think, depth of experience for all those other hats that you have then, because it is your passion and you don't have to worry. Not that you don't have to worry, but there's
No,
not
but
as much emphasis on those other pieces that it can be free, that it can be, yeah. So that's great as long as you can structure the time
that's right.
around it. Um, that is quite a bit though. So which is awesome. All right, so and tell me a bit on the so describe for me Maine. So I kind of have the gist of I've been through I think a couple times, and in terms of like the Maine trail scene and space. A couple weekends ago, we were able to catch up with the Mahoosic Ridge to River
Yep.
partnership individuals. Seems like you've got a pocket there up around Sunday River. You've got one around
Yep.
Portland. You've got one on the Camden area. And then one
Yep.
race I was scheduled to do this last year until it was COVIDed was the Bold Coast one
Yep.
a little bit further up. But it seems like there's where some of the trail pockets are in the state, or they kind of how the communities split up, so to speak.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, I mean, there may be there's a few other smaller groups that are active, and like there's one in the Lewiston Auburn area, which is about, I don't know, an hour or so north of here. But they're small, and you know, the coast, and sort of the from here right up to up past to Camden is pretty busy. Although I will say that I have a or the family actually has a summer house up on Great Cranberry Island, which is off of Mount Desert. And Gary Allen, if you know who he is, who's Crow Athletics, and he's done a couple big things. He has a house out on Great Cranberry, so you know there's a pocket up there as well. You know, with the Mount Desert Island Marathon and the Millinocket Marathon.
Yeah. Yeah, and I did again just coming through, making all these announcements, who's doing what races or whatever. I did come across. I don't think I was familiar with them before. I think,
Yep.
um, and remind me, is because it just feeds into connecting on our experiences here. Bradbury Mountain. Where's the Bradbury Mountain crew? Are
Yep,
there?
that's Trail Monster running.
And where is that geographically? Again, there.
Yep, it's they're what about 20-25 minutes from here.
Okay, yeah, I thought that
So
they were in
yeah,
kind of that greater Portland area or whatever. And I think that was my first exposure to Maine. I think there was a crew of theirs that came down for Iroquois or Virgil Crest Ultras
yep,
early on, and it seemed like a really fun, cohesive group, and that were putting on consistent and
yes,
consistently attended events as well.
yeah, that's right. I would say that's still true. They're great. You know, I run with them on the regular as well. You know, and they've got a great thing going. They're running in Bradbury every weekend for the most part,
Hmm.
and you know, and they've got the dirt series of trail races in the summer, and then in the winters they've got the snowshoe series, which is pretty great. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, they're pretty cohesive and active and good people.
Cool. And then, and I'm going to have you dig into some of your races, but one of the pieces that, just in case there are anybody to tune in or watch this later, it seems like Trail Sisters have gotten more exposure as an entity or a cohesive crew. I mean, I guess they're still relatively new, right? As
There,
in
yeah.
a formal
Well,
entity.
yeah. I mean, I think I can't remember when it's been around since 2015, 2015, maybe. I'm not totally sure. But what's helped hugely, I think, because Gina is Pacific Northwest, is West Coast, right? So what's helped hugely is her opening it up to local group chapters. Because that means that now there's the Boston group, there's Pennsylvania, there's us, Kentucky. I mean, there's Trail Sisters groups all over the place now, which I think has really broadened her reach and broadened their reach, which is great.
So for anybody who maybe may tune in now or watch it later, who's not already familiar with Trail Sisters, just talk about Trail Sisters just a little bit, kind of what that's been for you and some of your community, and just talk about that a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So Gina Lucrezi is the founder of Trail Sisters, and she's a former, I don't know how professional she was, but I feel like she was pretty into the race scene, and she really just felt that there wasn't good representation and good space for a women only environment, on the race scene, and sort of that idea that the ratios were tilted a lot, so there were a lot more men signing up for particularly ultras than there were women. And so finding ways to address that. The idea that for many women running on trail doesn't always feel safe or comfortable. And so finding ways, again, to make space where you would have a group with you, so you don't feel like you're going into something completely unknown alone. So that's sort of where she came at it from. Her kind of what she was doing just really appealed to me on a lot of levels. So I kind of early on was following her and sort of supporting what she was doing. She had sort of some fundraising things going on, and I jumped on that. And when she opened up the opportunity to have a group here, I thought that would be great. It would just be great. I honestly, I had never really kind of felt that there was a big like, to me, I go to races and there are a ton of women there and a ton of women I know, and we have great conversation, and they're running and I'm running, and that hadn't really kind of penetrated for me, that there was a big need for it. But as soon as we had this group, we've heard from so many women who were just like, thank you for having this. This is great. Thank you for being out there. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to run some trails that I might not otherwise have done on my own, Yep. So that's been really great, really gratifying.
And do you have formal like Trail Sisters like gatherings or any specific events, or is it more of just a connection network?
Yeah, for the moment it's, we run weekly. So we've got that going. We pre-COVID, a couple times during the year would have some social events. So we'd get together at, somebody's home, and have, post-run dinner or, a brunch or something like that. But obviously that's, we've only been around for just over 2 years. And last year was, again, pretty much a lost year for all that sort of stuff. So we haven't had a lot of opportunity to investigate that deeply, but it's definitely on the agenda.
Yeah. And this is, there's a comment from Beth Rismeyer, said, hi, is this in New Jersey? Any idea if there's a New Jersey chapter?
You know what? I don't know, but I feel like there might be.
Yeah.
I follow most of them. So, as soon as they start popping up, but she should definitely get on the Trail Sisters website, and look for the local groups.
Yeah. And so, Beth, if that was your question, whether is there a chapter in New Jersey, yeah, for sure, check it out. If your question is where are we based at the moment, for any listeners out there, this is Ian for the Trails Collective. I'm based in Ithaca, and Mari is based in Portland, Maine. And so we are coming to you, I guess, technically from your radio tower, but somewhere in between. So it seems like for sure growing awareness around the Trail Sisters, for sure. I think a wonderful entity, a wonderful energy, and for sure, I think a needed energy. I think for sure the trail, and particularly ultra space, still tends to be too much just white dudes out there, and that for sure conveys. So I think it's great and wonderful, and so how is this? All right, so. Tell me something about your events. It seems like some of your events, so it spun out of the Runaways Run Club, it sounds like, and you can tell me the evolution of the space where you maybe started some of the events somewhat informally and then channeled them into the more formal entity.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. You know, the Runaways is pretty informal, pretty loose. You know, we don't have a membership requirement. You know, there's no, you know, you don't have to sign away anything to come. You can just show up. We do have a waiver these days, so we do make people do the waiver, but it's real loose. And so 3 years ago, give or take, we did the first Firebird as a very, very low key, kind of under the radar event. And, you know, it just, you know, it just had legs. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
It's like you kind of do something and you walk away from it and you think, well, that was a hot mess, but it has
Hmm.
legs.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of how I walked away from that. I was like, this was a hot mess, but this could really do something. So we've kind of, you know, pulled our, you know, our boots up a little bit, and we're like, all right, let's make this a little bit more formal. And we made, you know, formed an LLC, got insured, you know, did the whole sort of, you know, cross the T's, dot the I's routine. And then the following year launched it as a real event,
Hmm.
you know,
And that
with
was
all
in
the,
2019. Is that when it was the formal
I think that must be right. I
one?
feel like I lose track fast of time,
Yeah.
you know, but yeah, that must be right. And, you know, and it was great, you know, it was a great experience, and it has legs, you know, and
And that's
the
in
trails
Falmouth.
up
And
here are great.
tell me about to tell us about that event a little bit.
Yep. So as you mentioned, you have to donate to a nonprofit in order to sign up. Um, the entry fee itself is pretty low, but then, you know, the nonprofit donation component is 20, and we ask if you can to do 40 to
Hmm.
some nonprofit, and we don't care which one. We just, you know, want you to show us evidence that you did donate. And as you rightly pointed out, the ratio then on the donation that goes to the nonprofits is huge. You know, it's like they're not getting some small
Hmm.
tiny slice of a pie that we've collected. They're getting a nice donation. So um, and we start the race at the Windham, Maine fire station. They allow us to use their space, which again is a great thing, and it's kind of fun to be in the community in that way. And it runs on Falmouth trails through two different land trusts for Falmouth, and then we go into Cumberland and run across a land trust there and back again. So it's pretty single track, technical, not a ton of
Hmm.
vert, but pretty technical trail, and it's just a fun day, a really fun day.
Uh-huh. And do you some of the land trusts? Do they kind of turn out? Are they on? They're obviously on board with the event, but are they? You know, so I guess there's. I feel like I've seen increased inroads between land trusts or trails organizations more recently. I feel like
Yep.
the article that was in whatever it was outside a couple years ago that got a lot of attention, where it was basically trail runners or leeches, and it was, I think, written by a mountain biker. It was
Yep.
I
Yep.
think there's a lot of truth to that. I mean, there's a lot of hardworking, dedicated trail maintainers in the trail running world, and for sure making donations to any number of trails organizations. But it's not the same heavy lifting that you'd see out of mountain bikers if they kind of have to do the work in order to use the trails. But
That's what
I
I was
feel,
just going to say. Yeah, I think
uh-huh,
for runners, we're so low impact
yeah,
that it cuts against us in a way. In other words, you know, I can walk out my door and go for a run on a trail and never have to think about, you know, who owns this land, who maintains it, who takes care of these trails. Never has to cross my mind because, you know, I'm in and I'm out, and I'm incredibly low impact, right?
uh-huh,
But the bikers are creating impact. They're creating some noise. People notice them, and people are saying, "Hey, you know what? You've got an impact on my trail system. We need you to pony up."
hmm,
And so, to their credit, you know, they're far more organized than trail runners are, um, and they have been doing a lot to kind of reinvest in the community and reinvest in the trails. And when we get there, that dovetails nicely with why, you know, I started the nonprofit that I've got that's rolling, because that's that kind of synergy that I'm trying to tap into there as well. But um, yeah, so we're you know, the land trusts are happy to have us there. They're happy for, you know, what they've said is, yeah, we love it. Can you please bring more attention to our trails? That's fantastic. They don't necessarily themselves, they're not coming out and doing the race or necessarily volunteering or anything like that, but they're definitely happy to have us there and happy to have the attention and sort of the you know, the people that we're bringing to see what they're doing.
uh-huh. And then tell me a little bit about I guess, two of the others. And so one of the others was the Shawnee Peak one, which I think, so right now I'm working on various angles of kind of best of trail races or whatever. And so I'm doing deeper dives into race stats throughout the Northeast. And that one for sure caught my eye. And I just circled back to it just because if I remember right, it's something like your stat is 1,200 feet, like, or 1,000 or 1,200 feet in a mile. And it ends up being a 2-mile loop. So that evens out. But still, that's a pretty,
it's rough.
That's a nice pitch.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's brand new for us this year. So, we'll see what kind of legs that has. But it's definitely, it's billed as and will be an endurance challenge, right? It's like, how many times can you put yourself through that 2-mile loop? Because you're going to get it all in that 2-mile loop.
And so, and what, remind me, what month is that again? When is that running?
I think it's October. Early October.
All right, you got some time to see. So you don't know yet really what kind of legs it's going to have, who you're going to have turn out. Because that's just I don't know, it's interesting, right? But that's just like a suffer fest. I mean,
yeah, it is. I know, it sounds horrible to me.
And it's an 8-hour. Is that what, or how many, or is it 2 to 4 hour, or what's the?
Yeah, so there's two pieces, two components to that. So I think it's a 2 or a 6 hour.
2 or 6 hour.
Sufferfest, yeah. So let's see. Yeah, it's October 9th is the actual date. And it's 2 or 6 hours for that 2-mile loop.
Those tuning in or may catch it later, again, this is the Shawnee Peak Challenge. That's the form, if I remember right, the formal name?
The Shawnee Peak Ultra Challenge.
Shawnee Peak Ultra Challenge. And this is one that caught my eye just because at first when I was looking for elevation pitches, which in my head, I guess I look for these elevation metrics are fun for me just because I don't know, here and there, I'll not infrequently, I'll come across just claims from different like RDs or like, this is the toughest race.
The hardest, the horrible.
Whatever, right? And that it's crazy because it's such, well, there's some subjectivity to it, right? I mean, what's hard for one person isn't necessarily hard for another one. Some people have a tougher time on flats or, whatever. And so as I'm about to write some of these articles, and there'll be some of those qualifiers, but to a certain extent, when I'm finding these courses with elevation gain, they're kind of telling me that at least for the terrain that I like, they tend to be in really beautiful locations. They've got to be around mountains. They've got to be in fairly raw areas. And so I think that's part of why I gravitate toward elevation. And then to a certain extent, I guess, so at least for me personally, coming from a competitive running background, like there's no time in the past like 10 years where I'm ever going to see, I guess, personal bests again. Like it never really made a big deal to me. I couldn't even really tell you what best times are for me historically, but I do know that I don't really care. And in the fact that trail kind of times or those metrics have such little weight or meaning that it doesn't even really matter. And so once you get into these events with elevation gain and loss, it's awesome because that's even more out the window. And it's like, can somebody run 2 hours or, yes, you can. But suddenly when you throw what you have at
1,200. Yeah. 1,200 feet. Yeah.
1,200 feet in a mile. I mean, that's a good pitch.
Yeah, it is. Well, because don't forget, you got to go down too. The down.
You go down, right? And so, one of the races that I put on Whiteface, I mean, that's just as much a part of it too, is the downs are just crushing legs. And so 2 hours, I imagine you can get hurt depending on how you run it. 6 hours, man, that's just kind of, well, it'll be interesting.
It's going to be ugly.
It is going to be ugly. There's a comment in from Jen Selwood. It says, remember when we were freaking out about our first marathon?
Yes, I do.
Was that first road marathon?
It was Yeah. She so that was 2011 for me. It was my first marathon, and it was the Maine marathon. So road marathon here starts right in Portland and ends in Portland. And I did that marathon again, like no clue what I'm doing, right? And go in with Jen and another woman, Terry Coburn, and she was doing it as you can train for a marathon and run a marathon if you're doing yoga. So it was a yoga to run thing. And I was like, oh, sure. Yeah, I'll do that.
So like very minimal run training, or you were just working?
I would say the mileage was pretty low. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Overall,
Yeah.
in terms of like those kinds of training plans, yeah, it was low mileage.
And that's kind of that trail mentality, right? I find myself saying quite a bit that kind of anybody can train for a race and do really well, but it's those who can kind of get off the couch and go out and do these things that. And so in some of the longer races or the 100-milers that I put on, the people tend to, in some cases, stand a better chance of finishing them if they come in undertrained, because they just don't go out as hard and they stay more conservative, right. And it's all different. So similarly with these big challenges, sometimes it's almost better to go in undertrained.
Maybe.
All right. I mean, I guess, right. Yeah.
Now that I'm a few years out from that marathon, and I've done plenty of, of ultra, not the 100-mile distance, but the longer distances, I definitely prefer to come in, with some solid run training under the belt.
Uh-huh.
No
and Jen,
question.
did Jen switch to trails with you as well, or is she still
No.
roadie?
Yeah, I think she's still roadie. She's not local anymore. I miss her a lot. So glad she's there.
She's probably not going to go up and do Shawnee Peak challenge.
Probably not.
No.
Maybe not.
No.
I could be surprised.
Jen,
Who knows?
that's okay. It's not that tough. I mean, you can. It's understandable.
Hey, she is busy kicking cancer's ass right now. So if she can do that, she can do Shawnee Peak. That's what I'd say.
All right, foot in my mouth there. That's fair.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Yeah.
She's a tough
all right.
cookie.
So Shawnee Peak will be a first year, still to be seen who signs up for that Sufferfest. But I guess it's one of those things where it's also, I guess I don't know what I was thinking of Maine. I guess I was thinking of mountains for sure in Maine, but I still for sure think of the coast. And I don't think of them being quite as sharp or the rise. When I saw that metric, and when I saw one of the other, I forget what other mountain up there has another race to the top of their mountain, one of their ski resorts. Just really impressive elevation metrics.
Yeah.
All right, and so that was the second one, and then you've got Untitled Run Company. You have one or two others.
Yep. So this year we're kind of really branching out more than we have in years past, and we've added the Shawnee Peak event, and we've also added something called the Tiny Trail Series. Tiny just referring to the number of entrants. So each of those Tiny Trail Series races, there are 3. Each of them is capped at 50 participants. So small field, and they're 5Ks, and they're on local trails. So 3 different local trail systems, which will be kind of fun, Yeah. And again, we haven't run it yet. I think it's going to be pretty low impact, pretty low key, and just kind of a fun thing. And if you do the full series, you get the shirt and all that kind of stuff, but it's that one I think is more fun than anything.
Mm-hmm. And does that end up being and that one you have done, or this is going to be a first year?
First year.
Well?
Yeah.
And so still some of these unknowns with the COVID implications for sure in entering the event space just this past year or two. It's tough to know what to expect.
Yeah, I mean, we did Firebird this past September, so we were in full COVID mode for that. It was full, everything was packet pickup, registration, all that stuff. Everything was outside. People were masked the whole time until they were just off the start line. So once you left the starting area, you could take off your mask. But you were asked, obviously, to put it back on again anytime you were coming into any aid station or if you were passing anybody on the trail and that kind of stuff. Single volunteers at any aid station location. In the past we've had 2 or 3 people at each one. This year was single people. So we've been there. We've kind of been doing it in sort of the individually packaged snacks at the aid station routine. Just really keeping things drop bags spread out across a fair amount of space so that nobody has to be near each other when they're dealing with drop bag stuff. So we've done it. We've dealt with it. Staggered starts. I think these other races I think are going to go very similarly, so that we'll have pretty staggered starts, masks, and sort of all the regular, at this point, precautions that you have to take. So it's a drag, but I really feel like I really feel that the small and mid-sized races are just perfectly poised right now because we're able to adapt and adjust much more easily than the Chicagos, the New
Mm-hmm.
Yorks, the Tokyos, anything big. Even the Maine
Yeah.
Marathon struggles because, you know, once you get into that number of people, you know, logistically speaking, you've just got far more to cope with than
Sure.
the small to mid-sized event, right? So we can really do these things like have packet pickup outside, you know, over a 2-day period or whatever it is, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That gets a lot harder for the big events. So I really feel, you know, we're in really good position right now.
Yeah. That's cool. And yeah, and in that sense, I guess it's a fun time to be entering, I guess, into the space for you because you are, I guess, well positioned, and it looks like you've got some pretty slick courses coming out of the gate. And you for sure have poured yourself into the community that you're a part of, and so that makes a
It makes a
huge
huge difference. Yeah.
difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
How about for you? Any plans in terms of racing or any destination stuff on your end?
You know, at this point, no. At this
Mm-hmm.
point, no.
Yeah.
We'll see how the year kind of develops.
Mm-hmm. And
But
Canyon de Chelly, how was your experience at Canyon de Chelly?
I would say that it was everything I hoped it would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. You've been there, so you've kind of seen it, but you felt it. You know, Sean Martin. Similarly, his heart and his soul are in that event. His family is in that event, you know. And I really, you know, I cannot kind of talk myself into doing any kind of destination race because it feels just indulgent to go, you know, to
Mm-hmm.
spend the money to fly someplace just to run in a race, even if it's a beautiful spot. If I'm just paying some conglomerate race
Mm-hmm.
director, you know, um, and this to me again hit all the right boxes. You know, it was like the money's going to a good cause. The people who are doing this are family and community. You know, the aid stations are manned by the high school cross country team. You know, I mean, I was like, this is the best. Um, so I really it was a good experience, a really positive experience, and exactly the
Uh-huh.
kind of thing that you know that I would love to be able to do in similar ways here. You know.
Yeah. And did you get to spend some time out there,
I
coast at
didn't
all?
spend a ton of time there.
Mhm.
You know, I was there only for a couple days, and then I was in Albuquerque, you know, for a few days after that. So didn't spend a
Yeah.
lot of time in Shinley, but it was,
Uh-huh.
you know, it was a pretty neat experience.
And then you did another one that was, it might have been a virtual uh, fund run. I don't think I'll pronounce it right, and I think I jotted it down somewhere. But the was it Hoshke?
Oh yeah.
Uh,
Oh, so that is Canyon de Chelly. That was their virtual
oh,
event. So
oh,
they went with
okay.
that this year, and it is the Hashke, the Warrior Run. So same thing. You know, I think Sean, you know, they're limited to 150 people or whatever it is for the actual event. But this year, I want to say they had something like 500 registrants. I mean, it was ridiculous.
Uh-huh.
So they made a good amount of money for the res and for the programs that they're doing. And it again, it was just it felt really good, really positive to be able to do that, even though it was virtual. You know.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Yep.
that's great. Um, how's the Portland community doing in terms of, I guess, implications of COVID? I know just on the topic of virtual runs, there was community came together to do a fund run for the store, my shop here in Ithaca this last year. How's the run community doing in Portland, or how's the it's Portland Running Company? Who's the
So we have
corporate?
a Fleet Feet here, you know, at this
Oh,
point
that's right.
in terms of a local.
That was
Yeah,
an acquisition though, right? Fleet Feet
that was.
purchase. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they did. So in other words, it's not that it's not the community. It still is the community, 100%.
Hmm.
But it's just got a different, you know, it's got a different financial backing at this point. So,
Yeah.
um, I would say, you know, we've put on several virtual events. They've been pretty successful. People have a great time doing them. Um, you know, Trail Monster has been doing their events this past summer. They did the Dirt Series virtually, and they do a good job of you know trying to keep something happening, you know, up on their end as well. So I think the community here is deep and it's wide, and people know each other and it's a very supportive community. So I feel the run community is fine. We're missing each other. We're missing
Hmm.
the in-person stuff a lot, but who isn't?
Hmm.
And I feel like, once we can kind of come back together, it'll be just as vibrant and robust as it was before.
Yeah. And you get time to go out and are you? I mean, again, as many hats as you wear, it seems like your time is pretty much spoken for there in Portland. Um, do you get out on your own? Any favorite places? What brought you to Maine? Why are you in Maine? What are you doing in Portland?
Yeah, kids.
Kids.
So yeah, I was in DC when I had actually both my kids, and my daughter would have been 4 going into kindergarten, and it was just one of those things. I lived in DC, so I was downtown in I don't know if you know DC at all, but in the U Street corridor area, which these days is pretty hip, but back then really wasn't so much.
Hmm.
And so the question just became, how do you how do you make the right choice for where you want to live and raise your kids? And DC is a fantastic city to live in. It's very green, and I lived near enough to Rock Creek Park that trails were again, pretty much an everyday part of my life, which was great.
Hmm.
Um, and I do still miss being there, but it was all about kids, quality of life.
Yeah. And was
So.
it the job then in Portland, or did you just feel like Portland's a good community? We're heading
So
north.
yeah, so I'd been here before, and there's a good music scene here. There's a decent art scene here. These days, there's a fantastic food scene here. Um, so it all seemed like a great, easy enough transition in terms of the things I wanted to have access to. And then I worked for law firms in DC. I work for a law firm here. It's pretty
Hmm.
easy, pretty transportable skill.
Yeah. So do you have you gotten a chance to really get out and explore Maine? Any favorite destinations or trail networks or communities, or have you been pretty locked down?
So I have been here now for quite a while. Now the kids are like adults, so
Okay.
it's been a while. Um, Mount Desert is astounding, right? So if you can get up to Acadia and do the whole Cadillac Mountain, Acadia carriage trail running up there is fantastic. Um, the This past summer we did the Hills to Sea Trail, which is relatively new. And that was a Runaways slash a Ken brainstorm, right? And we were trying to look at it and see if it would be a reasonable. I think he's looking for a 50 to 100 miler kind of course, right?
Hmm.
It was insanely rugged. It was the most rugged thing I think I've been on in forever, right? So not runnable in my estimation at all, but really fun. So it's a
Uh-huh.
really fun way to spend the day, kind of like just bushwhacking, and heading for the coast, right? So the ocean is always the place to be.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, so I get out, and as I say, I get up and I run with the trail monsters on the regular, and don't go south a whole lot. Usually, I'm heading north from here, but it's a
Hmm.
beautiful state. There's a ton you can do. From my door, it's like 10 minutes. I'm in the woods, or I'm at the beach. So you
Uh-huh.
can't beat it.
Well, the beach, but it's like the water's like 23 degrees. I don't know
True.
what you're doing in that beach up there, but it's pretty.
That's true. I'm not really getting in the water, but I'm happy to be near it. How about
I think that would drive me crazy. I wanted to
that?
be in the water, and if I couldn't get in the water, it would make me crazy. Um, but yeah, but it looks beautiful. I was really looking forward to
It
that Gold
is.
Coast race just because it
Oh yeah.
sounds
Yeah.
like it was beautiful.
It is beautiful from everything. I haven't done that one. That one's also pretty new. I think this was only its second year, but it's rugged as hell, and and really beautiful. I've got a
Uh-huh.
couple friends in the group who have run it, and they've really enjoyed it. But definitely, it's no joke.
And that's a good quote in the moment, rugged as hell, because
Yeah,
that's what I'm kind of learning that a bit as well. The more I learn about Maine is it's just kind of rugged as hell up there in those
rugged as
hills.
hell. Yep, that's right.
Uh-huh. There
And
was
that's my
one
kind of running. So I love to do
one
it.
yeah, and it does for sure take the speedsters out of the speedsters' legs and kind of levels that playing field a
Yeah,
little bit.
yeah. And beyond that, it's you what else can you do when you're busy in the middle of a run like that but be in that run.
Hmm.
So it really gives you an opportunity to just be present in a way that maybe you don't get to be in most of the rest of your day.
Uh-huh.
So
That's your kind of religion philosophical
yeah, that's right, I
coloration
appreciate that kind of stuff
creeping,
though.
creeping back in. And so exploring 50 mile, 100 miles. So there's some appeal there for the grind. You're kind of scouting out potentials.
Sure. Yeah. We don't have a 100-miler up here in Maine, so not
Who's
yet.
going to get there first? I mean,
That's
there's
right.
a bunch of you that are now coming on as kind of new race entities, and
Yep.
hopefully that's fun and kind of
It
good
is
energy
fun.
up there.
Yeah. No, it's
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Uh,
And there's plenty of space, you know? I mean, plenty of space here.
there is plenty of space up there, but wow, but rugged as hell space. I think one of the as part of the rundown when I'm doing FKTs
Yep.
each week, it's part of the fun for me is just because a lot of these FKTs, like people are choosing very intentionally routes that have some personal connection to them, or they know them in their relative regional community as really like beautiful destination spots. And so it's fun to see what people are picking. But one of the ones that popped up, I think, was the 100-mile wilderness, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
FKT that I think two people got it. I think it was a man and a woman each took FKTs sometime in this past year. And looking into that seems pretty remote and rugged as hell.
Yep. Yep. So a couple of the trail monsters did that this past fall, and you know, kind of I followed along sort of with what they were doing while they were out there. And one of the women I run with, you know, who is a trail monster leader, I get to run with her every now and again. She was crewing, you know, so it was just a really neat kind of eyeball into what that would be looking like. And I kind of hit up a couple of my friends and I was like, hey, what do you guys think? You guys want to do this? You want to go do this 100-mile wilderness thing? They were like, "Are
Uh-huh.
you crazy?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, no, I'm not crazy,
No, absolutely not at all.
not
Huh?
at all." But I don't know if we'll do it. But you know,
Uh-huh.
it's on the list of something that might be fun to try.
And some of those big areas up there, it's also wilderness area, right? So it's
Yeah,
not like so for all the land that's up there, there's still quite a bit of restrictions on the main land that you could use
yeah,
for
you
instance,
got
a
to.
100-mile race.
Yeah, yeah, yep. You definitely got to be plugged into, you know, property and who's got what and whether or not they're willing to let you use it. It's interesting here. I don't know what it's like. Probably not so much in Ithaca. I don't know, but um, you know, there are big spaces up here where people will have snowmobile trails and ATV trails that they don't want people running on.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which to me is an interesting kind of flip
Dynamic
to
there.
it. Yeah, it's a little bit of
Uh-huh.
an interesting flip, but I guess you know some of it's philosophical. But I guess you know, to me, I'm like, we're runners. We'll have no impact on your trails. You know, it's like you won't
Yeah.
even notice us. If you even notice us, you wouldn't even notice us. So,
And that's kind of the heart of that.
but it's a little bit of that, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a rub, but I think it also speaks to the root of the um, more, I guess, understood polarization of mentalities, and
Right.
that I guess that's one of those pieces of that mentalities is just that idea of my space, my community, what I want to use it for. And I was about to say kind of like an American or a Western concept of even just the concept of like private property,
Yep.
um, and how you use that. I spent um, a few months as an internship in Scotland in my grad work, and I had the opportunity to go up and run up in the fells and
Yep.
highlands a bit. And the individual that took me up there, it was cool. And the places that we were going in terms of just it not being that model where you
Yep.
have this amazing open hill and countryside where it's not all carved up to like it may still be privately owned, but like there's this common rite of passage for like everybody up there. Like you have access to
Right.
those hills to use it for common whatever purposes. And um,
Yeah. Yeah. That's not so much our ethos around here.
no, it's not. And I guess I don't know Maine well enough, and I guess everywhere is so polarized. But it would seem like Maine would have that kind of conservative,
Yep.
entrenched mindset in that regard.
Yeah, and it's
Uh,
for sure, you know, the farther out you get, you know, the more rural you get, the more you're kind of running into very different mindset on a lot of things. You know,
mhm.
not that you know, Not that you even have to come into those kinds of arenas when you're just out on somebody's land going for a run or what have you. But, you know, there's always a little bit of a rub.
Yeah.
And it's, it's no better when you're, say, in Cape Elizabeth, which is the next town down from here, and folks don't want you on their beach, and I'm
Yeah.
like, it's a
Right.
beach. It's a beach,
Hmm.
man, or
Yep.
what have you. So
My beach.
that's
Right.
right.
Uh-huh.
So it's no
Yeah.
better, it's just a little bit of a different twist.
Yeah. Well, how's the year? How's the year looking on your end? What are you most looking forward to? And um, anything else we can dig into here before we try to wrap up a
Yeah.
little bit?
So, I
Oh, your
am,
nonprofit. I didn't ask you about the
yeah, yeah,
nonprofit. Tell me about
yeah.
that before we get into something else, though, because I didn't ask about that.
Yeah. So late 2019, I think we got that off the ground. And initially, it was sort of the concept on the nonprofit was having a vehicle for some of the things we wanted to do race wise, but that we weren't quite able to fit into the spaces because we're a for profit company, right?
Hmm.
And so that was the initial thought. But quite honestly, once the nonprofit sort of got its legs under it and got underway, that changed pretty almost right away, and it's now sort of, we're finding our direction. I would say we didn't do a whole lot in 2020, but one of the things that we're working on right now that I'm super jazzed about is we're putting together a program. I don't know if you're familiar with Stride to Stride in Boston, but we're putting together something that is analogous to that, which is that they support low income, mostly people of color runners for race entry fees. And what
Okay.
I'm kind of developing on our end is something that is a little bit more than that. In other words, our goal is to be able to supply a kit, so shoes, clothes, some accessory kind of items, and some kind of basic boilerplate training plan for low-income runners, so disadvantaged runners in the community, kind of diversifying what we've got here in terms of our running community. Um, and then if they choose to participate in a goal race would be able to assist them with the entry fee to that race. So again,
Cool.
it feeds into all that stuff that I dig into, which is removing barriers and trying to bring more people into the community. And, for me, fitness is just enormous, in terms of giving people confidence. When your body is healthy and your body is strong, the confidence that you have as a person is just increases hundredfold, right? And has nothing necessarily to do with anything you've learned or that that you have a lot of money. It's really just from within, right? That confidence. And so fitness for me, embodies so much of that. And so this piece of trying to help more people get into that community and get into that mold is something we're working on. I'm really excited about. And then sort of the other arm of the nonprofit is working with land trusts, right? So
Hmm.
finding ways that we can highlight what they do, partner with them, draw people in, help people understand where those private property pieces are and how we can respect them in a way that keeps them open for everybody to use, because many of the land trusts have easements, as I'm sure you're familiar with private property owners, so that we can use the trail across
Hmm.
their land. So how do we make sure that people understand that and are respectful of it, um, and how do we get the word out, right? So I talked to a couple guys yesterday who are runners and they've been here a while, had no idea about all the trail systems we have here, and we're super excited to learn about it. So this is sort of our idea of having a repository for a place people can come and where can I run in the local area? If I want to do this kind of trail, where would I go? Oh, look, here
Hmm.
you can find it. So
And what's the name of the nonprofit, or what's the group, or the formal
it's,
name?
yep, it's the Northeast Runners Alliance.
Northeast Runners Alliance.
Yep.
Cool. Um, and so then, just in the name that you intentionally chose, hoping that it can be a larger entity, not just confined to your
Not just
backyard.
Maine. That's right.
Hmm.
That's right. Yep. So we're trying to find ways to, just involve other stakeholders regionally. Again, we're so new. We're so small still. We're finding our way and finding our voice. But eventually, that's the goal, is to make it
Hmm.
something that's got some regional heft. And as I mentioned earlier, then the mountain bikers are so organized and they've got themselves together and they can mobilize a group and they can get out and do something. I'd love to have the same kind of um, situation with trail runners, and just
Mhm.
runners generally. So people are kind of in that space and understand why they're doing the things they're doing, so that they have access to public lands, public spaces.
Mhm. That's great. Yeah, I'll look into that as well. Hopefully that will have some legs.
Yeah,
There.
yeah. So
Cool. Um, well, great. This is um, you're doing a lot. Nice work.
thanks.
Yeah. So anything else that we could touch on that maybe we haven't brought up or that you want to plug or mention or
Wow, I feel like we've kind of touched on most of the everyday stuff that I'm busy digging into, but we're here, we're we're running. We've got a great community up here. If people are interested in connecting, we'd be interested in connecting.
cool. All right.
So
Well, this will be live for people to, or live now, but it will be available for people to find afterward. I'll plug it as well. Try to get those links in there. Thanks for
fantastic.
all of the hats that you're wearing. Pretty amazing community. And
It
I'm
is.
pretty excited about just the energy in Maine. You just one part of that, but
Yep.
several other people on related trajectories, I guess. Um,
Yeah,
so
we've
I
got
know
a
that
great community.
you do have a great community, great and growing community, and for sure, um, some destination races. I think for me that are already now on my radar. So hopefully get up there as well and
We'll
join
see you
you.
at Shawnee Peak.
Whew. No, but Jen is. I think Jen Selwood is going to be at Shawnee
She
Peak.
will definitely be
And
there.
so
That's
just
right.
let me know how that goes, and yeah, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right, cool. Well, Mari, thank you so much for connecting, spending some time, an hour here
Yeah,
tonight.
absolutely. Thanks for the opportunity. It was great to get a chance to make this connection.
Sweet, right on.
All right.
All right, and thanks for all those who have tuned in with us here this evening, and we will catch you next round. And next round is I think it's next Thursday. We're going to catch up with Gene Dykes. For those of you who are tuning in, Gene is a pretty amazing individual, and stay tuned for details there. So, all right, so we'll catch you next round. Mari, thanks.
Thank you.